Hey everybody, this is Perch. I haven't gotten this mail before, and what's funny is it brought back a lot of memories. So I'm going to get into it, and I'll tell some fun stories. But this is a completely different topic than I think I've ever hit on this show, and with thousands of videos, that's actually pretty impressive. And considering it was pretty significant part of at least the beginnings of running a comic shop. But we'll get into it. So it says, here comes the mail. It says, "Hey Perch. I'm curious what you think about the undertones of Satanism inside of comic books. Books like Spawn, books that deal with the devil like Mephisto and the Avengers. DC has had plenty of this too. For some background, I am a Christian and I adhere to Christian values, and it worries me when I see so many people excited about a book that basically glorifies the devil. I'm not one of those crazy people that is going to rip up comics or try and burn them or get them banned. I just choose not to abstain. That's good for you, by the way. That's a mature attitude. Don't like something, you don't take it. That's not everybody goes down that path. So good for you. Um, I have the same feeling for a lot of metal. I like metal music, but many of the bands tend to put the satanic star or symbols of Satanism on the albums, and it's just not something I can participate in. I'm curious about your take of satanic undertones in comics, what you think of them, if you think they're harmful, or if you think the creators are actually anti-Christian. It's kind of a different question there, and intentionally doing this in their comics. Thanks for everything you do. Enjoy your show, even when you even when you curse. I think I'd have a lot of fun with you. By the way, letter writer. I think I think we'd have a good time. All right. So, well, as I answer that, let me go into a little bit of a story. So, when I opened up my first shop, early '90s, it was very much in the midst of the um, I don't know, very not far right, because far right means something different today than it did in the '90s. But it was like ultra conservative, maybe. Even that. These terms were all muddled. What it used to mean was that these people were, intently religious, tended to be very behind the idea of, either banning books or burning books. The town that I opened the shop in had a book burning at one point, and it was a big deal. And there was I had a small protest outside my store one time, and I found it completely bizarre. Particularly bizarre because I would drive by an abortion clinic, not all the time, but every now and then. That was also in the town, and then people were protesting there, and I'm like, man, what a pain in the ass that would have to be to, regardless of the issue at hand, waiting through that, to just imagine waiting through that to get to your job, and then like 3 months later. I don't remember what the news story was for some comic, and it may have been Spawn, but it was like, deal with the devil, and it was like if you were alive back in the '80s and '90s, and Stranger Things actually the latest season of it, season 4, did a pretty cool job of recapturing some of that spirit with the parental, anger over Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like it. That was very real. This idea of like they're infecting your children, and so comic book shops and quite a few of them were around during that time period. They can attest to dealt with that. They dealt with the idea that comic books were a corruption of children, and it kind of expanded. It was everything from skimpy costumes, or glorifying sex and violence. These characters that believe themselves gods, but they're not. The true gods. So you had like Superman fly around with godlike powers, and it was a front to God. So you had that was a very heavy wave in comics, and it's kind of I don't know anybody's dealing with that today. I mean, I'm sure some small communities maybe, but by and large, people aren't. That's just not something I think that we're dealing with as a society. The kind of puzzling thing to me is I recognize the same. This is why I often say kind of two sides of the same coin. The ultra conservative right wing contingent, the very religious contingent that wanted to ban books, pull things out of kids' hands. You just lose their minds over things like the Two Live Crew, stuff like that. That group, that behavior, that atmosphere, that mentality, that feeling, it now you feel it today, but from the exact opposite direction. The undertones of a lot of the cancel culture and a lot of this person said something about the environment I didn't like. This one woman on a HBO show had a birthday party for her 60-year-old mom, and they made the hats that said "Make 60 Great Again," and as a result, this person should be run off the air and take and lose everything because they're not a good ally. It feels exactly the same. It's the same tone. It's the same. We know what's better for you. We're going to manage your life. We're going to take things out of your hands. It has that same. If we don't, the world will come to an end. And this is the kind of stuff back in the early '90s. I remember at the shop, people would say things like, selling satanic comics is going to enslave children to the point that they'll go anti-God and the world will burn in fire. And like by the turn of the century, 2000 was going to be the end of the world. We have less than, this is like 91, 92, probably not 92, 93, somewhere in that zone. Anyway, that was it. That was where we were at. And so it's today, it's the same kind of thing. Are you driving a gasoline car? Are you not wearing a mask when you go outside? The entire world is going to be over in 2035. It's all going to kill. And maybe, look, that's none of this, by the way, is discounting rational things like, hey, if kids read comic books all day and don't go to school and don't learn anything, they're probably going to turn out shitty. Probably going to turn out like the people who are trying to ban, make you wear a mask all the time. Anyway, and by the way, the same thing with COVID. Look, it is a disease. It's a real disease. It was a pandemic, is a pandemic, and it's highly transmittable. And you should do things to protect yourself. You absolutely should. Wearing a mask has proven to be dodgy in terms of effectiveness, but hygiene, washing your hands, not going in crowded spaces, probably a good idea when there's a disease running around. Probably a good idea when it's flu season. This is a lot of the stuff that's going on with COVID was common sense masked in authoritarianism. Authoritism. That's what it became. I hated the fact that we had this divide, and I think I said this in another video. I was in a bathroom, walking out. This guy is behind me, kind of exits the stall, and goes, "I'm not washing my hands. They can't make me." I'm like, Jesus Christ, wash your hands, idiot. And forget about COVID. This is just good common sense. You wash your hands after you poop, moron. Anyway, but that's the kind of stuff that we get into. And it is baffling to me to see this. And the common thread in all this is people who want power. People who want power to control what's sold in the shop because it offends their religious sensibilities, or people who want power to force you to, wear a mask in your car. That's stupid. You can say, I believe there is a pandemic, I believe things are real, and then I'll simultaneously and say things like, hey, medication that we're going to mandate across the globe probably needs a healthy amount of testing. I mean, I understand the risk reward benefit here, but my wife worked in biotech for many, many years. And I'll tell you, she was freaked the fuck out by the rollout of that medication. And this is a hardened scientist. This is somebody who I think has traditionally voted more Democrat than Republican. It's none of that. It was literally they're not testing this enough. Because she worked on drugs that went through 5-year cycles. I understand you need to speed it up, but good Lord, people. Anyway, not to get down that side. So I give you that story because we get to your question. To me, and this is my opinion, it doesn't need to be yours. It doesn't need to be anybody else's. But I believe that when you have kids that are, under the care of parents, kids that are under 18 and certainly under 12, when there's a lot of formation going on, a lot of good parenting. But the reality is parenting doesn't stop even when your kids are 30. You still your parenting techniques shift. And what you need to do is protect your kids from things that are overtly going to harm them. For example, throwing an iPad in front of your kid for 12 hours and just leaving them to their own devices is a bad idea. Giving them free reign to the App Store, download whatever they want, not giving them context to some of the things they might download is a bad idea. It comes down to context. If your kid is going to read Spawn, first of all, Spawn is intended for probably 12 and up. I don't know what the exact age range is. It's wandered a little bit. If, for example, we were talking about Savage Dragon, which shows at times the savage dragon blasting his wife across the room with his own semen. That's something I would feel uncomfortable handing a 12-year-old and saying, here, go to town. You need to provide context to things. You need to be able to, when you sit down with your kid, and kids are going to mature and understand things at different levels. An 8-year-old may be ready for spawn if you're sitting down there and explaining what's going on. There's also probably some 14-year-olds who are not ready for spawn. They're just maturity wise. So you just need to help guide them, and it will be okay. If you leave children unattended to just kind of make up their own, completely explore all this stuff on their own with no help, no context, no guidance at all, then you're going to get random results. Sometimes those results might turn out okay. Other times they're going to turn out pretty shitty. That's my take on it. I just, again, from my perspective, I don't believe putting a satanic star on an album cover is going to lead people down the path to Satanism. And my opinion back in the 80s and 90s was, having that star on. Why do they have that star on there? Because they thought it made them edgy and cool. Just like how a lot of punk rock bands dressed up and did the things they did to look edgy and cool. Just like today, musical artists will do wacky, outrageous things to grab attention. That's the crux of it. I'm very willing to bet that the vast majority of metal bands back in the 80s who were running around with, kind of the satanic star on their album or this kind of stuff had no fucking clue what any of that stuff actually meant, because they were they basically, their marketing group who helped put together the album cover said, this appeals to, rebellious teens who are looking to break out of their parents' confines and may have been in church or are wanting to rebel a little bit, and we're going to give them a corporate mass-produced product that will, give them the illusion that that's happening. That's the black pill, folks. That's my take. That's not to say evil doesn't exist in the world. Of course it does. But in mass-produced products that Marvel and DC and Image makes, other than them being mind-numbingly stupid at times and promoting kind of various, agendas that the writers want to promote at random intervals, I don't think I wouldn't worry about leading kids down the path of Satanism. But you said something very mature in your mail, which I wholeheartedly respect, agree with, applaud, 100% thumbs up, which is, it makes you uncomfortable, you don't buy it. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. If you're a parent and you've got kids and it makes you uncomfortable in how you're raising your kids, you don't think you provide the context, it's not what you want for your family, don't buy it. At some point, your kid may come up and say, what is this thing I've been hearing about? Maybe there's a Spawn movie. It gets very, very popular again. And they come up and they want to learn more about it. As a parent, it's in your best interest to, talk them through, explain kind of what the character is, what's going on about it, maybe re-look at it yourself, figure it out, and not go, that's work of the devil. You just stay away from that. That's a bad idea. That in many ways plays into the whole marketing system that these companies want, that pull kids into this stuff in the first place. But, as a parent or as a person, you got to make your own calls on what you like and you don't like. But in comics, no, I don't think comics, and this includes, by the way, you can get off the topic of kind of satanic influence, you go to stuff like Cherry. Cherry is a comic I've talked about on this channel before, adult comic for sure. Cherry is a, kind of Archie-like character and sleeps around, and there's plenty of nudity and other things. Stuff that way more than what Savage Dragon gives you. And is it appropriate for your kids? No, of course not. Is it appropriate for your adults? That depends on the adult. I mean, it depends on your taste. If you're a grown adult, you can drink, drive, do your own thing. I'm not setting an arbitrary age here. I'm just saying, once you're an adult, you get to pick what you can consume. Do with it what you will. Would I sell Cherry to kids? Hell no. Of course not. Well, A, it's not legal. But B, I as the store owner, I'm going, well, clearly there's a line here. Would I sell Spawn to kids? Depends on the kid. Would I sell, if a 7-year-old came into the shop trying to buy Spawn, I would think about it for a number of reasons. If the parent was there and the parent's like, oh yeah, we're buying Spawn, I'm like, okay, it's your deal. If the parent was there trying to buy their 7-year-old cherry, I'm like, I can't, I can't sell this to you. It sells to you. I can't sell it to the kid because there's a law against that. But with spawn, I mean, yeah, if the parent's there to help guide it, that's what I would do. So that's my honest answer. I really I appreciate your mail. Very much appreciate you. As they say in Texas, they do this thing in Texas that I cannot get my head around. They go, I appreciate you. They say this. I've got a number of people I'm currently working. Some of the people who work for me, they come up every now and then. They go, "Hey, we appreciate you." I'm like, I know it's a compliment, so I'm like, "Oh, thank you," but it's a weird way of saying that. I appreciate you. I don't know. Is this a Southern thing? I haven't come across this one before. I thought I'd traveled and seen it all, but that just goes to show there's always something new you can learn about people. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. Appreciate the topic, and again, underscore your point of you buy what you like. You're not out there trying to burn down shops or get things banned or censored. God, if only more people thought that way. Seriously, if more people just did their business and took care of theirs, them and theirs, what an amazing transformation world this would be. Thanks for listening.